Hi there, I'm Sonal Mehrotra Kapoor. This is 5 Live. Today on the program, two stories that have got our attention. You must have heard about the depleting Aravali forest. A lot of controversy is erupting over it, but what exactly does allowing of mining across these ranges mean for Delhi and its air pollution? What are ecologists saying, environmentalists saying versus what the government is saying? That, and then in the second half, we look at air pollution yet again, but from the lens of what exactly is the cure. Now, latest study by Stanford has come out, which says that if the current rate of measures were to continue, guess by when India will manage to clean its air? You have a number in mind, maybe 10 years, 20 years, at the most 50 years? You're all wrong. Because according to this study, it will take 200 years for India to clean up its air if we don't get our act right. More on that coming up on the program. All right, let's cut across to some latest developments coming in on the Aravali row. Now, Union Environment Minister has spoken on the issue. He said misinformation is being spread on Aravali. He also went on to say that no mining will be allowed in the Delhi NCR region. But what exactly is that? He also went on to say no mining lease except for critical need. Also said that Supreme Court has upheld government's green concern and that Supreme Court has busted all fake allegations. Listen in.
The committee recommends that to ensure sustainable mining in Aravali Hill and Range, no new mining lease, except in case of critical strategic and atomic mineral. तो कोई नई माइनिंग की वो विषय नहीं है, जो प्रोटेक्टेड एरियाज हैं, क्योंकि अरावली के क्षेत्र में 4 टाइगर रिजर्व्स हैं, अरावली के क्षेत्र में 20 वाइल्ड लाइफ सेंचुरी है, अरावली के क्षेत्र में सरकार के द्वारा जहां पर पेड़ लगाने का कार्यक्रम किया गया है, चाहे ग्रीन इंडिया मिशन में हो, चाहे कैंपा में हो, वहां पर फ्यूचर में इस निर्णय के बाद भी कोई माइनिंग नहीं हुई। ये जो साइंटिफिक मैनेजमेंट प्लान की बात करी है, इसके हिसाब से ही हम अरावली में विकास के लिए प्रतिबद्ध हैं। सरकार इकोलॉजी और इकोनॉमी को साथ साथ लेकर के चल रही है। जो झूठ बोल रहे हैं, उनका झूठ बेनकाब धीरे धीरे हो रहा है और झूठ के कोई पैर नहीं होते हैं, वो अपने आप ही अपने ही झूठी चीजों से समाप्त हो रहे हैं।
So that's the Environment Minister, Bhupinder Yadav, there saying that there is misinformation being spread. But is that the case? Well, next we bring you a ground report, so look at that very carefully, because protests have erupted across North India after the Supreme Court redefined the Aravalli Hills, one of the world's oldest geological formations. Now, the Aravallis span across states like Rajasthan, Haryana, Gujarat, and the capital Delhi. Under the new definition, an Aravalli Hill should be at least 100 meters above the surrounding terrain. 2 or more such hills within 500 meters of each other, along with the land between them, are considered an Aravalli range. Now, environmentalists have raised concerns that defining Aravalli hills with height risks leaving numerous lower, scrub-covered, but ecologically critical hills unprotected from mining and construction. Environmentalists also warn that weakening the Aravalli protection will increase dust and particulate matter in Delhi NCR. By now, you know what it will do to pollution. It will accelerate groundwater depletion. It will worsen heat extremes. It will push the desert eastwards, permanently damage the fragile ecosystem that cannot regenerate easily. They argue that once the Aravallis are flattened or built over, the damage is irreversible. The government, however, insists that the new definition is meant to strengthen regulation and bring uniformity and not dilute protection. But is that really happening on the ground? My colleague Sharat sent us this report.
Aravali, the ancient mountain range that has stood for centuries, is now at the center of a storm. The Supreme Court's new definition has stripped protection from nearly 90% of the hills, sparking massive protests from Gurugram to Jaipur. Under the revised norms, only hills of 100 meters or taller are protected, and ranges must have 2 or more such hills within 500 meters. Critics say this strips protection from 90% of Rajasthan's Aravallis, opening the gates to unchecked mining.
अगर इस गाइडलाइन को वापस नहीं लेता है सुप्रीम कोर्ट, तो हम इसी गांव के लोग, इस गांव के अड़ोस पड़ोस के लोग हैं जो इसी पहाड़ की चोटी पे जाएंगे और एक बड़ा धरना देंगे, भूख हड़ताल करेंगे.
Activists are taking to the streets, raising slogans and staging sit-ins to stop mining and protect India's ecological lifeline. Protests erupted in Gurugram outside Minister Rana Singh's office, in Udaipur streets and on Alwar hills, as citizens and lawyers demanded urgent action. However, the Union Environment Minister has pushed back, calling the charges baseless. He has asserted that only a tiny 0.19% of the total 1.4 lakh square kilometre Aravali region is open for mining, while an overwhelming portion remains protected.
सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने चारों राज्यों को कहा कि अरावली की सेम डेफिनेशन होनी चाहिए. जहां तक उसका बॉटम जाएगा वहां से लेके 100 मीटर तक प्रोटेक्शन है.
The opposition has slammed the Supreme Court move, calling the new Aravali definition a direct threat to the region's ecology.
देश को जाति और धर्म में बांट के हिंदू मुस्लिम की बात करके वोट लेके गायब हो जाते हैं. इसके अंदर जनता का मूवमेंट बन चुका है. सब लोग चाहते हैं कि अरावली बैन रहे, अरावली की पहाड़ियां माइंस के लिए नहीं खोली जाएं.
Is the Aravali range under danger, or are the charges exaggerated? The ecological fight is on. With Devankur Vadhavan, Bureau Report, India Today.
केंद्र सरकार ने सुप्रीम कोर्ट में लिखकर दिया कि 100 मीटर या उससे ऊपर की पहाड़ी को ही अरावली माना जाएगा और सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने इसे स्वीकार कर लिया. लेकिन हम आपको आज दिखाने आए हैं कि आखिर किस तरह से यहां पर अरावली का सीना चीरकर अरावली को बर्बाद किया जा रहा है. आप देखिए किस तरह से यहाँ पर ये अलवर का इलाका है. अलवर में कितनी ऊंची ये पहाड़ी रही होगी जिसे खान माफियाओं ने पूरी तरह से बर्बाद कर दिया है. बड़े बड़े क्रेशर यहाँ पर लगे हुए हैं. भूपेंद्र यादव कहते हैं कि 100 मीटर के या उसके ऊपर के पहाड़ी को अरावली माना जाएगा, मगर यहाँ तो 100 मीटर से ऊपर की पहाड़ियों को भी नहीं छोड़ा गया है. और दूसरी बात वो कहते हैं कि ज्यादातर भूमि जो है वन विभाग में है, जो जहां पर माइनिंग अलाउ नहीं है. हम आपको दिखाना चाह रहे हैं कि ये जहां पर हम खड़े हैं, जहां पर आप देख रहे हैं चोटी छूटी हुई है माइनिंग माफियाओं के द्वारा, ये वन भूमि है. राजस्थान सरकार के ये वन भूमि पर इस तरह से खनन यहाँ पर चल रहा है. अभी भी इसके आसपास के इलाके में क्रेशर लगे हुए हैं. अब ये मिली भगत से ही चल रहा है. वन विभाग के अधिकारी और कर्मचारी या फिर माइनिंग विभाग के अधिकारी या कर्मचारी, ऐसा तो हो नहीं सकता कि इतनी बड़ी पहाड़ी को काट दिया गया हो, इतनी ऊंची पहाड़ी को काट दिया गया हो और पता नहीं चले किसी को कि माइनिंग हो रहा है यहाँ पर. कुल मिलाकर कहा जा सकता है कि राजस्थान के लोग इसीलिए डरे हुए हैं कि 100 मीटर का कानून 2003 में जो अशोक गहलोत लेकर आए थे वो यहाँ पर लागू है और इसके बावजूद इस तरह से यहाँ पर 100 मीटर के ऊपर की पहाड़ियों को काटा जा रहा है. कैमरा मनीष के साथ शरद कुमार, भिवाड़ी, अलवर, आज तक.
All right, and Sharad is live with us as well at this point. Sharad, क्या ये कहना सही होगा कि आपकी रिपोर्ट देखने के बाद मुझे लग रहा है कि एक तरफ इशू है कि लीगल माइनिंग अलाउ करनी चाहिए कि नहीं, पर आप कह रहे हैं लीगल छोड़िए, जब अलाउड नहीं था तब इतनी इलीगल माइनिंग हो रही थी कि अब अगर उसे लीगल कर लिया तो क्या तबाही होगी. क्या ये मैं सही समझ रही हूं?
बिल्कुल सोनल, जो आप रिपोर्ट दिखा रही थी वो ये पहाड़ी है। देखिए अब ये पहाड़ी है और इस पहाड़ी के पास ये क्रेशर मशीन है। आप देखिए किस तरह से जो व्यापार से जुड़े हुए लोग हैं, ये क्रेशर मशीन है। यहाँ पर नेटवर्क होता तो मैं आपको नीचे ले जाकर दिखाता। करीब 300 मीटर नीचे तक चली गई है पहाड़ी। आप देखिए गांव की पेरिफेरी को देखिए किस तरह से वो गांव नजर आ रहा है, जहां पर कहीं भी जो विस्फोट होता है तो इनके घरों में दरारें आती हैं। और 300 मीटर तक ये लीगल है। 2003 में सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने बैन कर दिया था। उसके बाद अशोक गहलोत ने रिचर्ड बर्फी फार्मूला लेकर आए और रिचर्ड बर्फी फार्मूले के तहत उन्होंने कहा कि 100 मीटर के पहाड़ी के नीचे के पहाड़ी को अरावली नहीं माना जाएगा। और उसके बाद ये लीज दिया जाने लगा। ये लीज दिया गया है उसी समय 2009-10 में, जब अशोक गहलोत ने रिचर्ड बर्फी फार्मूले के तहत अरावली हिल्स के 100 मीटर के नीचे की पहाड़ी को अरावली नहीं माना और 300 मीटर नीचे तक खुदाई हुई है। वो तस्वीर हमने आपको भेजी है सोनल, वहां से 300 मीटर तक ये लीज अभी चल रही है, वैध है। तो हम आपको यही बताना चाह रहे हैं कि यही एक डर है, भय है कि जो वैध लीज दिया जाता है वहां आसपास कोई लोग जो अपने लीज पे तो खोदते नहीं हैं, आसपास के पूरे इलाके को खोद डालते हैं और अपने लीज को बचा के रखते हैं और उसके बाद नीचे तक चले जाते हैं। भूपेंद्र यादव बार बार कह रहे हैं कि कंफ्यूजन है। लोग समझ रहे हैं कि जमीन के तल से 100 मीटर, हम तो कह रहे हैं कि नीचे जितनी गहराई हो, अरे नीचे गहराई तो 300 मीटर तक चली गई है जिस माइंस पर मैं खड़ा हूं। लेकिन अब यही एक डर है लोगों में कि इस तरह से अगर सरकार जो कह रही है दफ्तर में बैठकर, वो अगर आप ग्राउंड में आकर देखेंगे तो नहीं है। आपको दिखाए किस तरह से कि लीगल माइनिंग के जहां पर अलाउ किया गया है वहां पर 160-180 फीट की पहाड़ी को काट दिया गया और जहां पर आज के दिन में लाइसेंस दिया गया है राजस्थान सरकार की तरफ से, वहां पर 300 मीटर तक अंदर चले गए हैं और ये कहकर कि 60 फीट ऊंची पहाड़ी थी इसे अरावली नहीं माना जाएगा। जो भूपेंद्र यादव बता रहे थे सोनल, बहुत कंफ्यूजन है इसे लेकर। देखिए 2003 में सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने एक सुनवाई करते हुए हरियाणा के कोट आलमपुर का पूरे अरावली में माइनिंग पर पाबंदी लगा दी। अशोक गहलोत गए सुप्रीम कोर्ट में, कहा कि हाहाकार मच जाएगा राजस्थान में और जो चल रही उसे चलने दिया जाए। सुप्रीम कोर्ट मान गया लेकिन नियम बनाने के लिए कहा। अशोक गहलोत ने 2003 में रिचर्ड बर्फी फार्मूला लेकर आए 100 मीटर वाला। 2010 में फिर गए ये, तब भी सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने कहा कि नहीं ये तरीका ठीक नहीं है। अब उसी अशोक गहलोत के फार्मूले को लेकर अभी 100 मीटर का फार्मूला राजस्थान में लागू है। बहुत लोग ये जानते हैं कि नहीं लागू, उसी फार्मूले के तहत ये माइनिंग हो रही है सारी जी, उसी फार्मूले को हरियाणा, दिल्ली और गुजरात में भी लागू करना चाहते हैं। इसे लेकर यहाँ पर विवाद है, वरना 100 मीटर का फार्मूला राजस्थान में लागू है और आकर जिसको जो कह रहा है कि 100 मीटर फार्मूले के तहत अरावली जो है वो सुरक्षित होगी, उसे आकर ये देखना चाहिए कि हो क्या रहा है।
शरद, एक्सीलेंट रिपोर्ट एज ऑलवेज। आपने एकदम बता दिया है हमें, दूध का दूध पानी का पानी कर दिया कि एग्जैक्टली हो क्या रहा है एंड क्यों एनवायरमेंटलिस्ट इतना इस पे लेकर आ रहे हैं। थैंक यू ये सारी जानकारी हमें देने के लिए। So that was my colleague Sharat actually coming to us from Alwar there. But if you are still confused, because environment is a little bit like that, it takes a little bit of time to understand the implication. Let's clearly draw the air pollution connection in India with the depleting Aravallis, all right? Spend the next 30 seconds with me to understand this. Now, the Aravali judgment matters to Delhi's air because it weakens the protection of the natural system that helps limit dust pollution reaching the capital. How? Now, Aravali range sort of lies southwest of Delhi and act as a physical and ecological barrier between the Thar desert and the Indo-Gangetic plains. Their rocky terrain, vegetation reduces, wind-blown dust, stabilize soil, and also slow the movement of sort of particulate matter towards Delhi NCR. What the judgment changes, the ruling allows large tracts of Aravali land, mainly in Haryana, to fall outside the forest protection if they were never officially notified as forest. This does not order development, but it removes an automatic environmental safeguard that earlier restricted mining, construction, and land clearing. Now, what this affects and why it affects air quality. Now, a significant share of Delhi's particulate pollution, especially PM10, comes from dust, construction activity, mining, exposed soil, and heavy vehicle movement across NCR. The Aravallis help limit this dust. So, abhi का जो pollution है, this 800 AQI also that it goes to sometimes, that is after that protection. So imagine what will happen if that also goes away. When hills are cut, vegetation is cleared, land is flattened, dust emissions rise and travel easily from, all the way to Delhi, particularly during the dry, windy months. Construction, mining are known dust source. Environmental agencies have consistently identified construction and mining as a major contributor as well. The cumulative impact, Delhi's winter smog is already driven by multiple sources, unfavorable meteorological, high regional dust loads as well. All of that is only set to worsen. And why this is not reversible? Because once Aravali land is mined or concretized, their dust control function is effectively lost. Regeneration or blasted rock is extremely slow, making the air quality impact long-term rather than seasonal. The bottom line here is the judgment does not create pollution overnight, but it removes the natural buffer that Delhi sort of relies on in an airshed already beyond safe limits. So that's the connection really, but let's take it forward with the experts now. Vimlendu, environmentalist and CEO of Green Map, is joining us now. Also with us is Vaishali, Rana, environmentalist and conservationist, trustee at the Aravalli Bachao Citizen Movement. I want to get Vaishali's first reaction to what the Environment Minister has just said. He said that there are lies being put out. He also said that the construction area is 0.19% and there is nothing to worry. This is all speculation or propaganda, in his words.
But we have already given multiple examples and reports and representations at centrally empowered committee, the CEC, where illegal mining is going on in the Aravallis in Haryana. And also we had a petition filed in NGT, where there was an order given last year in 2024 where multiple illegal mining sites were reported, and Haryana state was instructed to submit an action plan report to control, stop, cease the illegal mining, and a mitigation plan to be submitted for the damages that have been done. It has been more than a year and no report has been submitted in the illegal mining matter. Just in last month in November to CEC, we submitted a very elaborate, detailed report where in Charkhi Dadri mining is going on as we speak today, right now, where they have violated all the environmental. By the way, in Charkhi Dadri, the mining is legal, but Mr. Bhupinder Yadav said that there's no mining happening in Haryana and mining is not allowed in Haryana. But in Haryana, in Charkhi Dadri, mining licenses are officially being given out and mining is happening in Charkhi Dadri.
Not just Haryana, Rajasthan as well. Sharad just showed us.
Yes.
That there are tenders floated and there are crushers he saw on site.
Yes. And there are 3 examples, like in Charkhi Dadri, where the miners are violating all their environmental clearances. They have burst open the underground aquifers, and the mining pits have gone much below the underground aquifers. There are channels and streams which are coming out, and the pits are filled up with water, and they're using suction pumps to drain out the water so they can go further down. All these reports have been submitted in CEC, but CEC is not talking about it. And then just last year we had a tiger which from Sariska Tiger Reserve National Park. It came to Haryana in Rewari, and for a month he was camped here in Rewari. So the CEC report also says the areas where mining cannot be allowed. They say that buffer zones of national parks, tiger corridors. But this have they defined the tiger corridors? My point is, a tiger from Sariska is traversing all the way to Haryana. We have multiple tiger corridors like this.
Okay.
None of them have been identified. So the wetlands, 2 kilo. Earlier they submitted a report. They said 2 kilometers radius from a wetland, no mining will be allowed. They watered it down and they said 500 meters. No mining will be allowed in 500 meters from a wetland. So this is how they watered down everything.
All right, Vimlendu Jha, when it comes to the ecosystem, it's a complex issue. A lot of understanding is still to be seen. Of course, reports on the ground are showing a very grim picture. Activists are also up in arms, and activists seem to be united on this issue across states. It's not one organization, right? What Sharad sent, the report that he showed us from Alwar, to what Vaishali is pointing out in Haryana, to what we are seeing in other states as well. But help me understand this. How does depletion of Aravali impact the air and the AQI of the country directly? What exactly is the connection?
So, Sonal, I think your report was exhaustive enough, as in it's not just the air that gets affected because of a depleted or a depleting or further depletion of Aravallis in that sense, because what we're talking, we need to understand that almost 25% of Aravallis has already disappeared because of illegal mining. And as you rightly said, that imagine if 25% depletion has taken place or plundering has taken place when the mining was actually illegal. Imagine when these so-called redefinition takes place, and when the entire Aravalli, almost 90% of Aravallis, is going to become expendable. Now, connecting that to not just one ecosystem phenomena called air and control of air, fine, we can do that. But reality, as you said, that it's not just that, it's also climate, it's also water sustainability, it's the heat stress, it's overall ecology of the entire area that actually in many, many ways, directly and indirectly, is defined. The feature that we're talking about, the weather pattern that we're talking about, everything is defined by this natural resource called Aravalli. As it might just look as if these are not as grand as the Himalayas, because not every mountain range has to be a particular, cutoff or a threshold. Everything has a relevance. A lake has a relevance, and therefore a river has a relevance, and an ocean also has a relevance. With regard to air, as in, it's very, very important for us to understand that this entire corridor that we have, as in if you look at the expanding Thar, so one of the things that we talk about is that desertification or furthering of desertification that can only be blocked by this vegetation, the natural vegetation ecosystem that exists between the Thar and this particular region. And mostly in the sense, of course, we're talking about cities like Delhi, but entire area of Indo-Gangetic, in a very, very strategic way for almost 2 billion years have been largely protected because of this corridor. Also, as in one is the entire, the sand and the dust from the other area, but also in terms of sink that we're talking about. At the end of the day, right now, imagine when the entire Delhi NCR is gasping for breath, and we're talking about air quality, and we're looking at, and in the same breath, when the Honorable Minister was talking about so-called plantation, just because you would perhaps plant 100,000 trees more, that does not give you a license to further to degrade the Aravallis in that sense. And if you look at historically, if you look at major milestones, by the way, Sonal, in terms of something which was actually banned in 2009 or something which was banned in 1990, how can it actually be appropriate to really plunder further in 2024 or 2025?
Sure, I get your point, but I very quickly want to find this out from Vaishali. Vaishali, we keep attacking the government and saying they've done this, but the fact is this order came from the Supreme Court. Supreme Court must have heard both sides. So what's happening there? Were you not able to make your case? What exactly was the rationale behind Supreme Court allowing it? It's a massive order with a lot of implications.
Yes, the point is, and the surprising part is that in 2010, the same Supreme Court, a report was submitted where they had spoken of a 100-meter definition for Aravallis, and Supreme Court had not accepted it in 2010. So what happened in these 15 years that now they have accepted it? That time Supreme Court in its order very, very clearly stated that this definition was not acceptable, and they said that a technical agency should be involved, like Forest Survey of India, and they should come back with a satellite imagery and everything where they talk of where they define the Aravallis, and they did not accept the 100-meter definition. So that time when it was rejected, what happened that this time it is accepted? And at Aravalli Bachao Citizen Movement, we are doing a due diligence and we're preparing our PIL. Let's see, very soon we would be filing it also. And another thing that I have to point out, like here, when we were talking about, so they have Central Empowered Committee also, when they submitted a report last year, they defined the areas where mining would be allowed and where it should not be allowed, like what I was talking about just some time back. So, so when I said that mining cannot be allowed in plantation areas for Haryana specifically, if I talk, so any area which comes under plantation, Campa funds are the compensatory plantation funds that every state receives. So any area which comes under Campa or where state government has put in money to do plantation, mining would not be allowed here. But in Haryana, almost all Aravallis come under Campa. Almost practically almost
you're
all
right, and
Aravallis.
I think those pictures of protests are speaking 1,000 words here. So let's wait and watch on what exactly happens here. And let's see, I don't know if there is a follow-up petition on this.
Yeah, this is a protest we did day before yesterday.
Yeah, but I don't know if this is going back to the Supreme Court, because that's the only way we find a solution here, because government has limited role to play in this. It is just an order that they are following from the Supreme Court. But I have to thank you both for the moment for joining us on this discussion. Let's cut across to some updates coming in. Delhi Chief Minister Rekha Gupta has just concluded a meeting on pollution. Traffic congestion, we are told, was discussed in that meeting. And they also discussed how to prevent traffic congestion at major hotspots in Delhi. What else was really discussed in this meeting? Let me cut across to my colleague. Sushant Mehra joins us for the very latest on this. Sushant, tell us what more was discussed. Have they talked about BS6 levels? Because that seems to be the only thing that's working and constructively bringing down the pollution levels, even if it is slightly in the past couple of days.
दिल्ली में जिस तरीके से पोल्यूशन का लेवल बढ़ा हुआ है उसको लेकर के आज मुख्यमंत्री की तरफ से एक अहम बैठक जो है बुलाई गई थी। उसमें ट्रैफिक कंजेशन जो कि दिल्ली के मेजर जो हॉटस्पॉट है, खासतौर पर आनंद विहार, चांदनी चौक, ITO, जहाँ पर ट्रैफिक का कंजेशन बहुत ज्यादा होता है, उन सब को लेकर के कई सारी संभावनाएं जो है वो तलाशी गई, कई सारे फैसले जो है वो लिए गए हैं। उसमें एक फैसला ये है कि ट्रैफिक कंजेशन इन हॉटस्पॉट्स पर ना हो, उसको लेकर के ट्रैफिक पुलिस के अधिकारियों को भी जो है वो गाइड किया गया है कि किस तरीके से ट्रैफिक कंजेशन ना हो। लेकिन एक मेजर अपडेट मैं आपको दे दूं, इस बैठक के अंदर ये हुआ है कि दिल्ली सरकार चाहती है कि आने वाले दिनों के अंदर दिल्ली NCR में ट्रैफिक का जो कंजेशन दिल्ली में रोजाना NCR से दिल्ली में और दिल्ली से NCR में जाता है, वो ट्रैफिक कंजेशन कम हो, उसको लेकर के एक अलग संभावनाएं जो है वो तलाशी जा रही है। सरकार हो सकता है अगले कुछ दिनों में ओला, उबर जो प्राइवेट कंपनीज हैं को जरिए प्राइवेट बसेस जो है वो चलाई जाएं, ताकि दिल्ली NCR से जो रोजाना लाखों गाड़ियां उबर से अपनी प्राइवेट गाड़ियों से दिल्ली में अपने दफ्तरों के लिए आते हैं, वो ना है, उनको लिए बेहतर सुविधा दी जाए। ऐसे में ओला उबर से बातचीत जो है वो आने वाले दिनों में सरकार कर सकती है कि ताकि ओला उबर प्राइवेट अपनी बसेस जो है वो रन करें, खास तौर पर से दिल्ली NCR में जो लोग अप डाउन करते हैं, ताकि ट्रैफिक का एक तो कंजेशन कम हो, गाड़ियां कम से कम आए। उसका एक मेजर कारण पोल्यूशन का भी रहता है, जब गाड़ियां आती तो उससे पोल्यूशन भी बढ़ता है, ट्रैफिक कंजेशन भी होता है। इन दोनों से जो है वो थोड़ी सी राहत मिलेगी। इसके अलावा सरकार को एक बड़ा राजस्व जो है वो मिल सकता है अगर इस तरीके की प्राइवेट गाड़ियां जो बसेस जो है अगर ओला उबर चलाते हैं, क्योंकि अधिकांश लोग देखा होगा सोनल की लोग अपनी प्राइवेट गाड़ियां का इस्तेमाल करते हैं करते हैं। इसके अलावा सरकार ने एक मेजर स्टेप ये भी लेने जा रही है कि जिसके पास PUC सर्टिफिकेट नहीं है उसको अभी मौजूदा 10,000 रुपए का चालान जो है वो कटवाना पड़ता है, लेकिन ये लोग 10,000 का चालान जो है वो भरते नहीं है, उसको लोक अदालत में जाकर के 100-150 रुपए में छुटवा लेते हैं। ऐसे में ये लोग 100-150 रुपए में उस चालान को ना छुटाएं। सरकार चाहती है उनको 10,000 रुपए का जुर्माना ही पूरी तरीके से लगे, ताकि लोग PUC सर्टिफिकेट जो है वो बनाए, उसमें कोताही ना बरती जाए। तो सरकार ये फैसला भी जो है वो आने वाले दिनों में ले सकती है। इन सब पे चर्चा जो है वो हुई, इन सब की संभावनाएं जो है वो तलाशी जा रही है, ताकि दिल्ली में ट्रैफिक और पोल्यूशन पे लगाम लगाई जा सके।
All right, Sushant Mehra, we'll leave it there. Ola and Uber being urged by government to run not just cabs but buses now. That's going to be interesting. Let's see how that actually has an impact. But for the moment, let's move on from this story and bring you another insight on air pollution. So how long will it take to clean up India's air? Not just Delhi, you know by now, cities across India have been choking on toxic air for months now. And this is not a one-off crisis, it's a problem that has repeated itself year after year with little lasting relief. Now, a new global study explains why clean air may still be not just months or years, but generations away. Now, you know by now, if you've been watching this program, that a major contributor to air pollution in India is vehicular emission and countries' continued dependence on fossil fuels. And there is only one proven way to cut those emissions, a rapid shift towards clean and renewable energy. But that shift is moving painfully slowly. Researchers at Stanford University analyzed that shift, looked at the transition, and also analyzed the carbon emission and clean energy transition across 150 countries, and their findings are blunt. At the current pace of renewable energy growth, India may reach 100% clean renewable energy in the year, and wait for this, 2212. That's 200 years from now. 200 years from now, India will finally manage to be fossil fuel free and air pollution completely removed in that way. Now, this projection has come from Stanford, remember, and it is based on how fast or how slowly in India's case are we adding renewable energy sources in 2023 and 24. As of 2024, India had achieved just about 4.65% of the clean renewable energy it would need to fully power its economy after electrification. That puts India amongst the slowest of the major countries to transition, despite being the world's most populous nation and one of the most polluted as well. And when India's timeline is placed alongside other major economies, the contrast there is striking. I'll ask my producers to pop up that graphic on the screen also for you. China, the world's largest energy consumer, biggest emitter, also at one time the most polluted country in the world, will transition to clean energy fully by 2051. That's more than a century and a half before India. Which brings us to accountability. When the sources of pollution are known, the solution is clear, toxic air is no longer an accident or geography or season, it becomes then a reflection of political choices. And at this pace, India isn't just delaying clean air, it is deferring it to generations which are not even born yet. So that's the reality. 200 years to actually clean up if we continue at this pace, if we don't get in a Clean Air Act of sorts, a Clean Air Committee of sorts, a centralized body to find us solutions. What exactly do experts have to say about this? Let me bring them in. Devabhakta Tuni Sri Krishna, a public health researcher, joins us now. Also with us is Mohammad Rafiuddin from Program Lead at CEEW. Bhakti, I have to start by asking you, this projection, I mean, some part of me had lost hope early on. This just is not going to give me sleep at night. At this projection, for 200 years, we're not going to have clean air.
Yeah, that headline is extremely disturbing, and I think the reason is it's kind of transitioning everyone's energy to clean it to electricity is like boiling the ocean. And in the short term, much more progress can be made by focusing on the diesel vehicles. I think that's the focus now. You know, everybody's thinking about how do I reduce pollution, but it's actually far more effective to reduce the pollution from the diesel vehicles, which are very few in number, compared to all the petrol vehicles and all the other energy sources. And so that, I think, is the part that's the hopeful part, is that this has been done in other places like California, Europe, and there's many case studies of this. And the reason why is that the problem you're seeing now in Delhi is that of atmospheric stagnation that's trapping all the particles in the winter time period. So it's not only a pollution problem, it's a meteorological phenomenon. And those are disproportionately affected by the particulates, specifically the black carbon particulates from the diesel emissions. And that problem is actually much more easy to solve in the short term using diesel particulate filters. These are fitted on diesel. And in fact, that's what the BS6 standard says. The BS6 standard is for the new trucks. It requires these clean filters on all the new trucks, but it does nothing for the old trucks. And that's what India is missing. You need to consider not just the new trucks and the new buses and the new diesel vehicles, but the legacy fleet. And that's what's not part of the plan. And so the real opportunity here is to recognize that changing everyone over to clean air, to clean transportation is going to take decades, if not longer, as a Stanford already said.
Decades, in this case, centuries.
Centuries, right?
This is centuries. This is 200 years. And when there is clear evidence that other countries have managed to clean up earlier. But Rafiuddin, you were on this program last time and you said something very critical that stayed with me. You said if we were able to clean up our vehicles, just replace our vehicles and get at least BS6 and above, also migrate at the same time to EVs and get the rest of the things, just vehicles in order, we would manage to bring down our air pollution by 20%. This data actually says we are not even close to it. The current measures are just not enough.
No, I think we will have to look at carbon emissions very differently from air pollution, because air pollution is perhaps much more complicated compared to simply equating them to carbon emissions. For instance, air pollution comes from your dust, air pollution comes from your brake and tire wear, air pollution comes from also from coal-based sources, which not only release your carbon dioxide, but also release gases like sulfur dioxide and nitrogen dioxides, which again become particulate matter through chemical reactions in the atmosphere. So just looking at carbon emissions and trying to say that carbon emissions are going to we are going to eliminate carbon emissions in 200 years. Therefore, we will also be taking 200 years to clean our air is not really a sound argument, in my opinion. For instance, your infographic also shows that the United States is also going to take about 128 years from now to clean up. But if you look at the air quality in the US, it's perhaps many-fold better compared to India.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we'll have this is probably a much more complex picture, and we probably should not just be looking at carbon emissions and trying to project our air quality pathways based on what we are seeing from carbon emission pathways.
I see. That's a fair point. Dave, do you want to come in on that one? That entirely clean, I think that's what the Stanford study says, that you will be entirely clean. And that transition will take long. To be fair, is it also because of how complex a nation we are? We're also a growing nation. We are a developing nation. We are a capitalist society. Is that all of that playing a role here as well?
Yes, in fact, sorry.
No, to Dave first. I'll come back to Rafiuddin. Yeah?
Yes, you can't halt the economic activities. Those have to keep going on. That's not going to change. What you can do is make them cleaner using the diesel particulate filters and removing the black carbon, which is has a disproportionately high cause of the stagnation that you're seeing. That's trapping the pollutant. So you can. It's too hard. It's hard. It's too hard to change all of these carbon sources overnight, but it's much easier and much simpler to change the sources that are causing the black carbon particulates that are cooling cooling the ground and warming the upper atmosphere, causing the temperature inversion. So your problem really is about stagnation as well as pollution, and that you can target the stagnation problem much more simply with diesel particulate filters. And that's what I think is missing from this, is that, transitioning to pure, non-carbon sources will take forever. And in fact, that's not necessarily what's needed. Like in the United States, we require diesel particulate filters on all trucks and buses, and we still use them.
All right. So what is required then? Rafiuddin, come in on that point. If we were to clean up our air and strictly, have a lens towards better AQI and better PM 2.5 levels, what exactly is required, both in the short term and in the long term?
So air pollution is a multi-sectoral problem, and you will obviously have to have interventions across sectors, not just one sector. Obviously, you'll, like you said, transportation is a dominant source of air pollution in Indian cities. But if you go to the rural areas, it's household cooking and biomass burning. That's the dominant source of air pollution. So it depends on your geography. It also depends on, the sectors that you
That's true.
choose to target, depending on the economic and the social feasibility. And on the basis of that, you'll be able to reduce air pollution. The way, for instance, you also cited the example of China. China also looked at it as a multi-sectoral problem. It had an ambitious program to reduce air pollution, and it managed to reduce air pollution by almost 40% in the Beijing airshed in a matter of 4 years, which is unprecedented anywhere in the world. Whereas other countries took longer, 15 to 20 years to manage this feat. So the bottom line is it's a multi-sectoral problem. It's a complex problem, which obviously needs interventions across sectors, and there's no silver bullet to this.
Right, there's no silver bullet. I get that, Rafiuddin, but give me solutions. Give me your playbook. If the Environment Minister is listening to you right now, and he is finding this problem as complicated as you are, and we often get this criticism, right, that we are constantly questioning, but where are the solutions? Give me solutions. How should government actually approach this?
So clean up transportation. That's one solution. Try to move to cleaner fuel standards as much as possible. and wherever you can electrify, try to electrify. And then improve public transportation in Indian cities and also Indian towns, because right now the public transport infrastructure that we have currently is inadequate, falls short of our own standards, in fact, in many Indian cities. So ramp that up. Then you have, you've rolled out an ambitious clean cooking program, the Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana, trying to move away people from biomass-based cooking to LPG. That was an ambitious program, and it's also given you gains. Now ensure that the program sustains, continues, and people actually use clean cooking solutions. Connections have been given, but are they really refilling their cylinders? Are they continuously using this for cooking? Ensure that. Eliminate crop residue burning, especially in areas with high air pollution. For instance, the Delhi airshed bears the brunt of crop residue burning from the northwestern region of India. So eliminate that through various solutions, both in situ and ex situ management. Clean up your industries, move from coal to gas. So these would be the top solutions that come to my mind, and these are time-tested solutions. These are not solutions that don't exist now, right? You can borrow them from your own country, you can borrow them from the examples of other countries, but these are time-tested solutions. This is the playbook.
That's the playbook, and it's simply out there. All the government has to really do now is just enforce it, right? But it's not always easy to enforce. The thing about moving to public transport, apart from the fact that it has very poor connectivity, last mile connectivity is an issue, safety is an issue. Like a woman would find it very hard to sort of take public transport in the early morning hours or evening hours, etc. But there is also a sort of expanding middle class in India, which is aspirational, which is growing, wants to own that first car, wants to get out of the bus lines and actually, be able to have their own vehicle to take their family along. That was the big dream that even the Tatas at one point were selling, right? Even with cars like Nano, etc. So we are sort of, breaking away the dreams of young, expanding middle class because you want to sort of balance it out with pollution. My question to you is there a way to balance it? Is there a way to keep them both happy? Or should the government just say, this is for the larger good, and thus some aspirations will have to wait?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And I think the important point is the petrol emissions, even if they keep going, they're only 20% of the black carbon and maybe at a minority of the overall pollution. And yet the focus of the interventions has been on a uniform approach to pollution, trying to control all sources. And really that's, I think, perhaps the mistake that's being made is you need to, the diesel emissions actually punch much higher than their weight. They cause half the particulate pollution, according to studies, and of that 80% of the black carbon. And so this is, the solution, the problem is not just pollution, it's the stagnation that's in Delhi. So specifically to Delhi, to the earlier point, in different geographies, there are different solutions, but specifically for the Delhi air apocalypse, stagnation is really the main cause of the problem right now. And so, because the pollution is not able to escape. And so, when it does escape... I have very little time, so I want to give that last word to Rafiuddin very quickly to say that how do you balance? Is there a way to balance here? Or we'll have to go hard against middle class dreams?
I think we'll have to take the balanced route, because the sticks not always going to give you the results. It should be a balance of carrots and sticks, and obviously you'll have to balance aspirations with what's required for public good.
All right, easier said than done. Our political class, if they intend to solve this problem, have a task at their hands. For the moment, there are some low-hanging fruits that can be picked up, and we really hope they are listening into all the suggestions that are coming to us from all you experts. For the moment, thank you so much for joining. That's all we could pack in on 5 Live today. We'll see you again tomorrow. Bye-bye.